I'm Alex Sharfin, and this is the Momentum Podcast, made for empire builders, game changers, trailblazers, shot takers, record breakers, world makers, and creators of all kinds. Those among us who can't turn it off and don't know why anyone would want to. We challenge complacency, destroy apathy, and we are obsessed with creating momentum so we can roll over bureaucracy and make our greatest contribution. Sure, we pay attention to their rules, but only so that we can bend them, break them, then rewrite them around our own will. We don't accept our destiny, we define it. We don't understand defeat because you only lose if you stop, and we don't know how. While the rest of the world strives for average and clings desperately to the status quo, we are the minority, the few, who are willing to hallucinate there could be a better future, and instead of just daydreaming of what could be, we endure the vulnerability and exposure it takes to make it real. We are the evolutionary hunters, clearly the most important people in the world, because entrepreneurs are the only source of consistent, positive human evolution, and we always will be. Weekly success requirement. Recently, I made a post on Facebook, and I asked what questions did anyone have so that I could get some materials for the podcast, because I want to be able to ask questions that are important to you as a listener, important to entrepreneurs who are growing. And I've gotten this one several times. This one, I'm actually reading it from Ken Dunn. He asks, what is the number one most important part of your weekly routine? Why do you recommend it for all of us? So, Ken, I appreciate the question, and I appreciate the fact that you asked about weekly routine, not daily routine, because those are two completely and totally separate things. And if you've listened to my podcast at all, if you've listened to my information, then you know that when it comes to doing just about anything, I see a system and a process for how to do things right. And in our process, the way that we work with entrepreneurs is by creating a planning process. You have your client-centric mission, that long-term directional goal. Then you have your one-year objectives. What is it that you're going to do this year? Then your 90-day targets. What percentage of what you're going to do this year are you doing in the next 90 days? Then your 30-day goals. What part of those targets are you going to knock out? And then each week is where rubber meets the road. Each week is where you make the commitments. Each week is where you make things happen. So I love that you asked about weekly, Ken, because this is one of the most crucial parts of any planning process for an entrepreneur. So here's what is an absolute necessity in my weekly routine, 52 times a year, every single week, my planning process. And we have a weekly review process that not only do I use, but every member on my team uses and sends me their weekly summaries. So we actually get a weekly report from every single member of the team. And I'll tell you how simple this is. So each week I sit down and I ask myself two questions for my weekly report. So does my team. They ask themselves these two questions. The first one is, what went right? And the second one is, where do I need support to move forward? Now, you can sit down and answer 100 questions every week if you want. You can make this more complicated. You can make it more difficult. But there's a reason why I use these two extraordinarily simple questions. What went right? And where do I need support to move forward? Because each week, here's what I want to do. I want to tune my reticular activation system. Reticular activation is when we start looking for something, we see it more often. You know how when you go out and buy a car, you think you're going to buy a car and it's like the best car. I remember this happened to me about in 2010. I bought a red Toyota SR5 extra cab and had it like made by Toyota. It was one of the few times that I bought a new car. I just didn't have time to buy a used car. I actually had Amy Hood, who was our bookkeeper and accountant at the time, negotiate with like 4 different Toyota dealerships and got me an incredible deal. And I remember going to pick up the car. That was all. The only involvement I had was picking it up. I remember Amy was with me. It was kind of a funny trip to the dealership. Jumped in the car, pulled off the lot. I really liked the truck. And on the way home, it was like every person in Austin had bought a Toyota truck. I saw them all over the place. And granted, there's a lot of Toyotas out there. But when you're driving one, when you're sitting in one, you're now actively looking for it, so you see it. So each week, I want to actively look for success. What went right? The first question, I sit down and I actually make a list of all the things that went right. Because here's what happens, and you know this as an entrepreneur. We'll focus on where we missed. We'll focus on what we didn't get. We'll focus on the things we still have to do. We'll focus on the things that are, still on our plate. We're not looking at where did we have success? Where did we win this week? So that first question is crucial to me, and I'm looking for what is giving me momentum that I can amplify, do more of, share with my team, show them that we're excited. Like this week, I just did weekly planning before I did this podcast. So what went right? I put down time with Matt Olaya, my new CMO, or our new CMO. Not my new CMO, but Matt is a good friend of mine, and he's our CMO. He's decided to work with us. I'm so excited. What else went right this week? We had new clients that signed up for Leverage and Grow and Scale. In fact, one of our new clients is Mike Dillard. Like, holy crap. Mike Dillard is one of our clients. Like, Mike's a friend of mine. And there are few people I have as much respect for as I do Mike. I think that he is one of the most genuine entrepreneurs out there. He's the real deal. He doesn't BS. He doesn't make things up. He has more talent. Mike has forgotten more about talent than most people will ever hope to have. And he's one of the more inspirational entrepreneurs I've ever been around. I love the guy, and I'm so excited to have him as a client. And then the last thing I wrote down is we did our first leverage training. We have a group now for $300,000 for entrepreneurs that are at $300,000 and above. And this week we did our first group training with them, and it was awesome, like so inspirational. So I sit down, and once a week, I literally sit here and I revel in everything that was amazing. I write down everything. I write it out. I recognize it. I write it with a pen in my hand so that I create that myelin sheath around the memories in my nerve synapses. And I obsess over what went right and making sure that I point it out to myself. And then I move on to the second half of my page. At the top, it says what went right. And the second, it says, where do I need support to move forward? And each week, I'm looking for where did I create momentum? How can I create more? And then where do I need support to move forward is where am I feeling constrained? Where am I frustrated? Where are things slowing me down? And in order to write this down, I flip through my dailies because each day, every morning, I write down where was I uncomfortable yesterday? And if something comes up more than once, I know that it's something I have to address. And so I write it down, and where do I need support to move forward? Like this week, I wrote down, I need help with my calendar. I've just switched executive assistants. Leanne, who's now helping me, I need some help with her with the calendar. I need help getting our new marketing plan into our waterfall and planning documents. I need help getting all of my schedule this week for Paleo FX, where I'm speaking several times into the calendar. Like, those are the things that I write down so that tomorrow morning, my team knows how to help me. And I put those into a weekly report. What went right? With a short list. Where do I need support to move forward? With a short list. And I send it to my team. And they've sent the exact same thing to me. So on the weekend, I sit down and I read from each person a report that says what went right and where do I need support to move forward. And it includes their data and their metrics and the outcomes that they have. So I know exactly what's happening with my team every week. I don't need project management software. I don't need to go looking anywhere. They tell me exactly, and we're in a communication loop that happens 52 times a year. Then I switch to the other side of my weekly planning, and I ask myself, what could I do this week to move towards my goals? I look at my annual, my 90-day, my 30-day. What do I have on the near horizon? And I make a list of everything that I'm going to do to be productive this week, all of the outcomes I know I should have this week. Like for me this week, I need to record some podcasts. I need to get a couple of sections of content done. I need to work with Matt to get our marketing plan into our waterfall. I need to clear some things up with my team on how we're doing some of our planning. Those are the things that this week, I know that if I mark those off by the end of the week, I'm going to have a wildly productive week, and I'm going to go charging towards my goals. So every week, without fail, I sit down and I go through this process. And here's why this is so important. It's not just for this week. It's an exercise in perspective. See, if you sit down week after week and you ask yourself, what went right? Where do I need support to move forward? If you get accustomed to asking these questions, if you start building a habit around these questions, here's two things that happen to you. And if you have your team do it, it happens to all of your team. By asking what went right and where do I need support to move forward, everyone on the team starts becoming conditioned to figure out what went right every week. What can they share with the team? What can they do more of? What can they amplify? What can you draw out and get more done? And then secondly, where do I need support to move forward? Every person on your team has a direct channel of communication to you where they can share where they need support to move forward and get it in writing so you can see it. We share these reports with the entire team, and everyone knows where everyone else is. And it is incredibly motivating and connecting and fulfilling for everyone on the team to have an understanding of where each other are and what kind of level of success we're creating. So each week, without fail, I sit down and I go through this process so that I have clarity over the week that I just went through, and I can forecast what I'm going to do in the week that I'm entering. And by far, hands down, this is the single most important habit that I have, or most important part of my weekly routine for long-term success. Because here's what happens to far too many entrepreneurs. We get up every day and we just get after it. We get up every day and we do as much as we can. We get up every day and we just keep pushing, and we don't ever stop and take inventory. We don't ever stop and get some perspective as to what's going on and how things are going. And if you're willing to sit down once a week and answer what went right and where do I need support to move forward, everything will change for you. And then at the same time, make commitments and ask yourself, what could I do this week to move towards my goals? And write out that list. And then tomorrow, what I will do is when I get together with my team in the middle of the day, at the end of the day, when we do our weekly planning, I have a list of what I think I need to do, and they will give me their list of what they think I should be doing. And then I'll make my commitments for the week. So if you're looking to get more out of every single week that you work, if you're looking to create more productivity, more results, to get more out of what you're doing every day, this will change things for you. In fact, you're probably listening to this on a Monday because that's when it's getting released. Sit down today, take 10 minutes. It really doesn't take more. 10 minutes, write down what went right, make a list. Where do you need support to move forward? Make a list. And I want you to do something. From the beginning of that 10 minutes to the end of that 10 minutes, I want you to gauge just how much different you feel, how much more grounded you feel, how much more excited you feel, what your mentality feels like. Do you feel lighter? Do you feel more motivated? And here's the big one. Did it put you in momentum? Because I know that sitting down and figuring out what went right and where I need support to move forward shows me exactly where I created momentum and where I'm going to create even more. If you haven't yet, why don't you go to billionairecode.com and answer a few questions for us? Here's why. I want to help you understand what you need to move forward as an entrepreneur. I want to give you the tools, the resources, so that you can move forward quickly and stop feeling like you're stuck or constrained. Because as entrepreneurs, here's a fact. We're not going to slow down, stop, or quit moving forward. We will always be pressing for more. I want to show you exactly where you are right now, the next few steps you can take to advance to the next level, and what you should be focusing on to experience maximum results. Don't let yourself get stuck. Don't let yourself feel stale. Don't let yourself feel like you can't make progress, because you absolutely can. Go to billionairecode.com. Answer a few questions for us. We will send you a full summary of the Billionaire Code and show you exactly where you are and what you need next.